Laura with the Wichita Falls Arts Council, and today we are going to create a composition inspired by the surrealist painter Rene Magritte. We're going to create a daytime sky. We draw a bunch of clouds that fill up the whole space on a light blue paper, show that it's daytime. And then we're going to cut a silhouette of a shape, a recognizable shape. So that could be an animal, an object, or even a letter. And then we're going to glue it onto a dark blue piece of paper to show a daytime shape with a daytime sky on a nighttime landscape. So here's a chair, a snake. This one's in landscape orientation. It's a dolphin. So it could be any recognizable shape of your choosing. I have 3 pieces of paper that I'm using. I have a green, a dark blue, and a light blue. I'm starting with a light blue to make my daytime sky that I'll cut my shape out of. To make the clouds, I'm using oil pastels. So I have little pieces of white and black. You can also use gray instead of black if you have it. I'm going to think really quickly about what kind of shape I want to create. And then I'm going to orient my paper in a way that makes the most sense for the shape that I want to create. So I think I'm just going to keep it in portrait, but if I wanted to turn it to landscape, I could do that too. So I'm going to start by making a cloud. It could be as big or small as you want. And I'm going to start in the middle of my paper. I'm going to zoom in. And using my white oil pastel, I'm going to create the entire shape of my cloud. I'm using small circular movements. And I'm going to apply the color to the light blue paper. I'm going to get a pretty opaque cloud. No little gaps. It's pretty filled in. Pressing with enough force to really fill in the space. Once I have my white cloud shape all filled in, I'm going to go in with my black oil pastel, and I'm going to create some shadows to make my cloud a little more three-dimensional. And so we're using directional lighting, so light's coming up from above, which means that the tops are going to be lighter, and then it's going to cast a shadow underneath. So along this whole bottom edge here, I'm going to take my black oil pastel, and I'm going to apply little bits of black all along the bottom edge. It'll be a little bit thicker in some areas. Maybe even a few dots along the inside, underneath each of these little tufts. And then I'm going to go back in with my white oil pastel, and I'm going to blend all of these black marks that I made along the bottom edge. So starting from this white area here, I'm going to make small circular movements with my white oil pastel onto the little black marks that I made. And that's going to blend with the black to create a nice gray. I'm just moving across the bottom of my cloud. And it's a little darker than I want it, so I'm going to go in with a little more white and blend a little further. And this is going to add a little more white to the gray. It's going to make that shadow not as intense. Now I have a cloud. I'm going to keep making clouds like this all over the paper. I'm really going to focus on the center of the paper because that's most likely where my shape is going to be. When I flip this paper over, draw the shape and then cut it out. So I'm going to keep drawing clouds just like I did this first one. I'm going to try to make them in slightly different sizes. The next one will be a bigger one. I like to make them wider than they are tall. I'm trying not to make them too round either. We rarely see clouds that are circles. Okay, so I have my white shape. I'm going to add some black along the bottom edge. Center. And then I'm going to blend. Okay, once I filled up most of the space with clouds, I'm ready to draw my shape. And I don't want to draw on the front because I don't want to interrupt my clouds with a bunch of pencil marks. But what I can do is draw on the back. So I'm going to flip my paper over. I'm making sure that my clouds are facing up, right, where the shadows are on the bottom of the clouds. And I'm going to draw my shape. I want to take up as much of my page as I can to really take advantage of the amount of clouds that I drew. It wouldn't be wonderful to cut out a shape and, none of your clouds are on it. So big shape. And we're also just drawing the outside of a shape. Once you have your shape drawn, you can make sure you can cut your shape out. And this chair. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and glue my shape onto my dark blue sheet of paper. it over and glue lightly. I'm going to leave a little room at the bottom because I am going to create a ground out of my green sheet of paper. Just glue. Of course, you could always share the green paper or use scrap because we really are just taking off like a little sliver. Go for a little hill. Bottom, and once I have ground and my shape is glued on, then I have a finished project.